In a small coastal town nestled along the sun-drenched shores of Nigeria, life moved at a slower pace. The salty breeze carried whispers of fishermen's tales, and the vibrant colors of market stalls painted the streets with warmth. It was here that Ifeyinwa had grown up, a bright-eyed girl with dreams larger than the ocean before her. But those dreams had taken her far from this place. Years ago, Ifeyinwa left her hometown to chase ambition in Lagos, the bustling heart of Nigeria. Armed with determination and a camera she barely knew how to use, she worked tirelessly to carve out a name for herself. Her talent soon caught the attention of renowned clients, celebrities, politicians, and even international brands sought her unique eye for storytelling through images. She traveled the world, capturing moments that told stories of love, resilience, and humanity. Yet, despite her outward success, Ifeyinwa's heart remained heavy, burdened by memories she couldn't escape. Beneath the polished surface of her glamorous life lay an unhealed wound, the betrayal that shattered her first love. That betrayal came in the form of Chidi, the boy who had promised her forever but walked away without explanation. His absence left a void she tried to fill with work, travel, and fleeting distractions, but nothing could erase the pain etched into her soul. One day, as she sat in her Lagos apartment editing photos, a letter arrived from her mother. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, yet urgent. Inside, the message was brief but clear. "Come home. Your brother is sick, and we need your help." Ifeyinwa hesitated. Returning to her hometown meant confronting ghosts she'd spent years running from. But family was everything, and duty called louder than fear. Packing her bags reluctantly, she boarded a bus bound for her childhood home. As the bus rolled into town, nostalgia hit her like a wave. The familiar sights, the crumbling church where she attended Sunday school, the mango tree under which she played as a child, the narrow dirt roads leading to her house, brought back memories she thought she'd buried. And then there was him, Chidi, the shadow that lingered over every corner of this place. When she arrived, the news spread quickly. Neighbors greeted her warmly, their eyes lighting up at the sight of the prodigal daughter returned. But amidst the joy, she learned something that made her stomach churn. Chidi now owned a popular local restaurant and lived with another woman, Amaka, who was beloved in the community for her kindness and charm. Seeing him again felt like reopening a wound she thought had scarred over. He looked different, older, more polished, but his presence still stirred emotions she didn't want to feel. Anger, sadness, regret. They all rushed back, threatening to overwhelm her. Determined not to let the past consume her, Ifeyinwa resolved to keep her distance from Chidi. She threw herself into helping her family care for her ailing brother, finding solace in the familiar rhythms of home. Yet fate seemed intent on pulling her back into the tangled web of her history. One evening, unable to sleep, Ifeyinwa decided to take a walk through the quiet streets of the town. Passing by Chidi's restaurant, she heard voices drifting through the open windows. Curiosity got the better of her, and she paused, hidden in the shadows, listening. "I know you're seeing someone else," Amaka said, her voice cold and cutting. "Don't think I don't notice." Chidi stammered, trying to defend himself, but his excuses sounded hollow even to Ifeyinwa's ears. Her breath hitched. For years, she had convinced herself that Chidi had abandoned her willingly, choosing a better life with another woman. But hearing him now, she realized the truth. He hadn't changed. He was still the same man, charming, unreliable, incapable of loyalty. The revelation left her reeling, but it wasn't the end of the surprises. The next day, while visiting the market, Ifeyinwa ran into her old friend Nkechi, who greeted her with a warm hug. As they caught up, Nkechi hesitated before broaching a sensitive topic. "Do you know why Chidi broke up with you back then?" Nkechi asked gently. Ifeyinwa shook her head, bracing herself for whatever came next. "It wasn't just his choice," Nkechi continued. "His family forced him. They wanted him to marry a girl from a wealthy family. He cried when he told me about it, but he did what they demanded." Ifeyinwa felt the ground slip beneath her feet. The weight of this revelation was staggering. All these years she had carried hatred for Chidi, believing he had callously discarded her for someone else. But now she saw the full picture. He too had been a victim, trapped by circumstances beyond his control. Her mind raced with conflicting emotions. Should she feel pity for him? Or was this just another excuse, a way to justify his actions? Either way, one thing was certain. The betrayal she had clung to for so long was far more complicated than she ever imagined. Ifeyinwa found herself at a crossroads, her mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. The revelation about Chidi's forced betrayal had shaken her to the core, but it hadn't erased the years of pain he had caused her. She knew she had the power to hurt him in return, to expose his infidelity to Amaka, and watch his carefully constructed life crumble. It would be the perfect revenge, a way to make him feel the same anguish he had inflicted on her. She imagined the scene. Amaka confronting Chidi, their relationship shattering like glass. The thought brought a fleeting sense of satisfaction, a bittersweet taste of justice. But as she sat alone in her childhood bedroom, staring at the cracked ceiling, doubt began to creep in. If I do this, she whispered to herself, won't I become just like him? The question haunted her. Wasn't revenge simply another form of betrayal? If she exposed Chidi, wasn't she stooping to his level, hurting someone else, Amaka, to satisfy her own need for vindication? And what would that achieve? Would it heal her wounds, or would it only deepen the scars? For days, Ifeyinwa wrestled with her thoughts. She walked along the beach where she and Chidi used to dream about the future, the waves crashing against the shore like the turmoil in her heart. She realized that revenge wouldn't bring her peace. It would only tether her further to the past, to the pain she so desperately wanted to escape. Instead, she decided to channel her emotions into something more constructive, something that could transcend bitterness and transform her suffering into art. She began organizing a photography exhibition in the town, a project she had been contemplating for years but never found the courage to pursue. This time, however, the theme was deeply personal. Love, loss, and healing. Each photograph told a story. Not just hers, but universal truths about human connection and heartbreak. One image stood out among the rest. A portrait of Chidi taken many years ago, during happier times. In it, he was smiling softly, his eyes filled with tenderness and light. The photo captured a version of him she had almost forgotten. The man who once promised her forever, before circumstances and choices drove them apart. On the opening night of the exhibition, the small gallery buzzed with excitement. Friends, family, and curious townsfolk gathered to admire Ifeyinwa's work. To her surprise, Chidi showed up, though reluctantly. He lingered near the entrance, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, clearly uncomfortable. When he finally approached the portrait of himself, his breath caught. For a moment, he simply stared at it, his expression unreadable. Then slowly his eyes filled with tears. I never stopped loving you, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of conversation around them. Ifeyinwa turned to face him, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of her chest. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to unleash all the anger and hurt she had bottled up for years. But instead, she took a deep breath and spoke calmly, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Love isn't just about feelings, she replied. It's about choices. And you chose differently. Her words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Chidi opened his mouth as if to respond, but no words came out. Instead, he looked down at the floor, shame etched into every line of his face. A few days after the exhibition, Ifeyinwa was sitting on the porch of her childhood home, sipping tea and watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. The town had been buzzing about her photography show, and while she appreciated the attention, her mind remained preoccupied with unresolved questions about Chidi, Amaka, and herself. Just as the last rays of sunlight faded, a soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Amaka standing at the gate, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. Ifeyinwa hesitated before inviting her in, unsure of what to expect. I know you know about Chidi, Amaka began, her voice trembling slightly, but I want you to know something else. I've suspected his infidelity for a long time, but I stayed because I was afraid of being alone. Ifeyinwa's eyes widened in shock. She had expected anger, denial, or even tears, but not this raw honesty. Amaka's words struck a chord deep within her. In that moment, Ifeyinwa saw beyond the polished exterior of the woman everyone admired. Beneath it lay vulnerability, fear, and a longing for connection that mirrored her own struggles. I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness, Amaka continued, her gaze steady now. I just wanted you to know that I understand your pain. Maybe we're not so different after all. Ifeyinwa felt a lump rise in her throat. For years, she had viewed Amaka as the other woman, the one who had taken Chidi away from her. But now she realized the truth was far more complicated. Amaka wasn't a villain. She was another victim, caught in the same web of betrayal and broken promises. As they sat together in silence, the weight of their shared experiences settled between them. Ifeyinwa thought about how much energy she had spent hating Chidi, blaming him for everything that went wrong in her life. But now she saw that hatred hadn't healed her. It had only kept her trapped in the past. Maybe we all deserve a second chance, Ifeyinwa said finally, her voice soft but resolute. But not with each other. Amaka nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thank you for saying that, she whispered. It means more than you know. When Amaka left, Ifeyinwa felt an unexpected sense of relief. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step toward letting go of the bitterness that had weighed her down for so long. In the weeks that followed, the dynamics between the three of them shifted dramatically. Chidi and Amaka broke up soon after their respective confrontations with Ifeyinwa. Chidi, unable to face the consequences of his actions, decided to leave town entirely. He packed his belongings and moved to another city, hoping to start over. Some whispered that he was running away from his mistakes, while others believed he simply needed space to rebuild himself. Amaka, on the other hand, chose a different path. Determined to reclaim her independence, she opened a small boutique selling handmade crafts and textiles. Her business quickly became a hub for local artisans, and she found joy in creating something entirely her own. Though the breakup had been painful, it also gave her the freedom to rediscover who she truly was outside of her relationship with Chidi. As for Ifeyinwa, she made the decision to stay in her hometown, a place she once thought she'd outgrown. Inspired by the success of her exhibition, she dedicated herself fully to her art. Her photographs, which explored themes of love, loss, and healing, resonated deeply with people across the region. Visitors traveled from neighboring towns and cities to see her work, drawn not only by her technical skill, but also by the emotional depth of her storytelling. Ifeyinwa also began conducting workshops for children, teaching them how to use photography as a tool for self-expression. She encouraged them to find beauty even in life's most difficult moments, sharing her own journey as a testament to the power of resilience and creativity. One day, during an interview with a local journalist, she was asked a question that lingered in the air like a challenge. How did you manage to forgive? Ifeyinwa paused, reflecting on the years of pain, anger, and eventual acceptance. Then she smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. Forgiveness isn't for those who betrayed us, she said. It's for ourselves, to free ourselves from the past and move forward. Her words resonated deeply with those who heard them, becoming a mantra for anyone struggling to let go of old wounds. Ifeyinwa had finally found peace, not through revenge or regret, but through understanding, growth, and the courage to embrace a new beginning.